Marshall, Clark to the rim. An 11-0 Iowa run. As one of the arena cameramen got hit there after the bucket, and the officials stopped play.
Right here, this is Caitlin Clark all on her own, jumping out to double team. She sensed that she could get the steals, that she could create some havoc, and she did, and got the layup the other way. Let's go.
Gabby Marshall approves.
This is Joseph Newgarden. Joseph was conceived to win races. Stopped drinking milk at 2, picked it back up at 32. Good for strong bones. Tell that to his clavicle. Joseph's like an action hero who wins even when he loses. This is his wife, his Tuesdays, his hand-eye coordination. He might have the greatest jawline in sports.
He's not that handsome.
He even wrote a children's book about winning. America loved it. Joseph loves the smell of unleaded gasoline. He hates imperfection. He doesn't believe in magic, but on Sundays, Joseph flies. This is Joseph Newgarden. Welcome to the fastest racing on earth. This is Alex Palou, a conquistador of concrete from the start. Alex grew up practicing kissing girlfriends to be ready for the day he'd meet bricks. Alex is so fast he does his taxes January 1st. He speed reads 2 novels before noon. He's Spanish, but he'll French kiss on the first date. Racing's what he thinks about in awkward silences. Racing's what he thinks about when people aren't talking about racing. Racing's why he's a grown man haunted by milk. Alex has traveled the world. Here are his favorite places: Portland, Detroit, Monterey, Portland again, and rent-free in 32 drivers' heads. This is the front of his car, but if you race him, you'll just see the back. This is 3-time IndyCar champ Alex Palou. Welcome to the fastest racing on earth. This is Pato O'Ward. His last name's Irish, but his first words were... Pato's the fastest 25-year-old on 4 wheels. He's can't miss TV for everyone but his own mother, and he's tasted every kind of victory except for the lactose variety. Pato looks like a one-man boy band. He charms like a British spy. He smells like burnt rubber. And he doesn't have fans. He's got groupies. So take a look at the next face of IndyCar, because whether you love him or love him, he's about to turn this whole sport upside down. This is Pato O'Ward. Welcome to the fastest racing on earth.
How are you feeling?
This sport is tough.
You cannot underestimate the mental pressure.
You have all the eyes on you from the outside.
Nothing to see here.
We are the Kardashians of Formula One.
I look perfect.
Any team needs total unity.
Our biggest rival is ourselves.
After 12 years together, Lewis tells me I'm going to Ferrari. Really?
Good for Lewis, good for his bank account.
If you don't perform, you're out. I control you every millimeter.
Norris trumps Verstappen!
I never thought I'd have a challenge like this in my career.
Fuck.
We'll see if we can get him to crack.
Zach is a prick.
I'm fighting my ass off.
That's the most scared I've been in my life.
You know what competition's like.
Ruthless.
Some people rise to it. Some people don't.
Let's go!
You didn't ask me, how do you feel getting sacked?
How did you feel about
I couldn't give a f.
The 27 cars of the 2025 NTT IndyCar Series and on the streets of St. Petersburg, we are racing. Scott McLaughlin with a peerless performance from pole keeps that lead with absolutely no problems at all down into turn one with Colton Herta following through in second place.
Two Meyer-Shank teammates there, Rosenquist and Armstrong, and the blue and white cars behind. They were side by side for a while, but it's single file as Colton Herta tries to catch back up after
and that's a big one. That's Nolan Siegel in the back.
Massive contact for the number 6 full course caution. You see the 12 of Will Power, a championship contender.
Awesome. Now we're on board with Will Power. Nolan Siegel in the blue and orange to his left.
So side by side through one, up on the curb for him there. You see Foster to the inside. He's got to go wide in 2.
Oh, it was Power.
Yeah, Nola just had to check up a little bit.
Green is the call as they come down the start-finish stretch once again. Rosenquist all over the back of McLaughlin, makes a move to the inside to have a look at turn one, but McLaughlin has it covered.
He's got to be so late on the brakes, but you see 5th in line there. Alex Rossi closing the gap there, side by side. Colton Herta already trying to make some moves up from 10th, essentially leading on that alternate strategy.
McLaughlin looking a little squirrely there as he tries to find temperature again in his tires, and that's Santino Ferrucci locking up, almost getting into his teammate David Malukas. Teammates Dixon and Palou come in. Jamie.
Scott Dixon makes the drive down pit road. The 44-year-old 6-time champion. He's had a good race car, started 6th. He pulls in. They'll take off those primary tires. They'll put another set of those hard primary tires on. They hold them, get it full. Good stop for the 9.
Nice stop for the 10 as well. Gets that 100% renewable Shell fuel on board, gets going again. And Newgarden in between the two. So Dixon ahead of Newgarden and Palou behind him. So Dixon takes the advantage in that battle of the champions right in the middle there.
And they talked him through it. He was able to hold on. They pull those green sidewall tires off. They put the primaries on. Another turn of the front wing. Got it done, guys.
Rosenquist then taking the opposite of the strategy that he did earlier. He was the first guy in from the original group. Now he'll be the last. Lundgaard and Rossi don't need to stop.
As we see the 7 now dive into the pits, that is the leader, and he is going to roll the dice in a big way, going to these soft tires and try to make them last for a full 30 laps.
Welcome back to the streets of St. Petersburg, where the stops are coming thick and fast. Your leader, Scott Dixon, still out on track, but Joseph Newgarden and Alex Palou both pitted while we were in break, guys, and it got pretty close between Newgarden and Lundgaard. Here it is.
This was Joseph Newgarden's final stop of the day. Fuel goes in, 4 tires. He blends out just ahead of Lundgaard and Rossi, who are on the softer tire, but we think they have to make one more stop or hang on to slower pace.
Rossi's already actually come in, got off of those softs. He's back on the hards, but Lundgaard, we heard that radio transmission from Brian Barnhart. He's going to try to make these things last to the end. Jamie.
Scott Dixon's led 5 laps today. He pits from the lead. I just asked Chip Ganassi, team owner, any changes? He said no. Dixon's happy. 4 tires, primaries go back on, guys.
And who moves into the lead? Scott McLaughlin once again. Let's look at the blend. There goes Palou. Scott Dixon out between him and Joseph Newgarden.
Huge. Palou got ahead of his teammate by making the undercut. That could be the race-winning move for Alex Palou.
Scott McLaughlin, they made a couple changes in the 2 pit stops prior. No changes here. A little slow on the left front for the 3.
Guys, Joseph Newgarden just got by Scott Dixon in turn 1. They were side by side, almost banging wheels. Newgarden pounced as Dixon was trying to find tire temperature. Here it is, Joseph Newgarden up the inside of the 6-time champion, Scott Dixon. Newgarden throwing muscle and a little shade to Dixon. There was almost contact. It's Penske versus Ganassi once again to start the season right here. The 2 best teams in the sport, undeniably, as Alex Palou looks for some slipstream, looks for the perfect run to try to get by Stingray Robb. He might just send it and go for it right here.
He does, makes the move up onto the inside. Alex Palou gets past Stingray Robb. Finally, now Newgarden has to follow suit if he wants to have any chance of contesting for this win.
And it'll be interesting to see if manufacturer politics come into play here.
Oh, it does.
It does.
Gets out the way.
Robb powered by Chevy, as is Newgarden, a Honda in the Ganassi cars of Palou and Dixon. That was some blatant interference.
Well, I don't know. He's let Dixon go through as well.
Only a handful of corners to go, only 1 real passing opportunity. Newgarden nowhere close enough to make it happen, but Dixon, he is trying to line something up here. This isn't over for second.
Oh,
so close.
Here he comes, up and on the inside of Joseph Newgarden. That's P2 for the 6th-time champion. A great move from Scott Dixon to take 2nd place. But Alex Palou, your reigning champion, the man they all need to beat, lays down a marker on the streets of St. Pete. Alex Palou wins the opening round of the 2025 IndyCar season as Newgarden seemingly coasting to the line and apparently out of fuel.
But it didn't really matter. Dixon, he took us back to 2nd place. So outstanding. Yeah, that's what he was just doing what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, what an amazing job by everyone at Ganassi Racing, HRC, DHL, and everybody at the 10 car. They gave me everything I needed this weekend to win. I told you yesterday that we had a really, really fast car, so was looking forward to the race. Our strategy changed a lot during that first yellow, but so glad that we got that number 10 victory lane. It's been 138 days since Nashville, and been dreaming about this every single night.
Up next, it's the Throttle Club IndyCar Grand Prix, Sunday, March 23rd at 3 p.m. Eastern on Fox.
Driver, start your
Good evening, race fans. Welcome to Drafting the Circus, brought to you by Sinister One Productions. My name is Frank Santarowski. I'll be your host for the next hour as we talk about everything racing. Get your mind off of everything else like transgender mice and stuff like that. So anyway, joining me tonight, Levi, Richard Deaton. What's up, fellas?
Good evening. Good evening.
Hope this doesn't go on for an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
All right. Listen, yeah, we got a good bit of racing to talk about, but I did want to mention that fine actor Gene Hackman passed away recently. You may ask, why are you mentioning Gene Hackman on a racing show? Well, if you didn't know, Gene Hackman was actually a heck of a race car driver. I mean, he raced in the Trans Am Series. He raced some endurance racing. He's run the Rolex 24. He was always a beast in those Toyota Pro Celebrity races they would have at Watkins Glen and Long Beach back in the late 70s and early 80s. You know, and he was a co-owner of a IndyCar Indy 500 entry for Dennis Firestone in the 80s as well. So I just wanted to mention that. You know, I've loved a lot of his film roles, but my favorite is his uncredited role in Young Frankenstein. But you know, but true race fan and a pretty good amateur race car driver on his own. So rest in peace, Gene Hackman. Anyway, so let's talk about IndyCar. Got their season kicked off and started. Alex Palou picking up where he left off with a win. Fox first IndyCar broadcast, and the numbers are back, and they had 1.48 million viewers, which is the largest number of viewers for a non-Indy 500 IndyCar race in the last 14 years. Yeah. So, so they're, you know, obviously their promotional campaigns and ads have paid some dividends. The coverage, you know, there were some complaints. There were a lot of complaints. Some of the graphics need a little work, this and that. But overall, I thought it played quite well. You know, for their first race, I'm sure they'll disseminate all their information, look at their comments, and just work to make it better. So pretty promising start there. Lee, did you get a chance to watch the race?
I watched the highlights of it. I work on Sundays, so don't get much of a chance to catch up on it. So I have to watch the reruns. But it was a good race. Alex Palou up front again with, you know, Dixon on his tail. What are you gonna say?
Yeah, I thought Dixon had that one in the bag, but Palou burned him on the overcut. So, or the undercut, overcut. I think it wasn't. This one was an undercut. So the interesting thing was IndyCar had asked Firestone for a little more differentiation between the alternate tires and the primary tires, and Firestone responded with an ultra soft alternate tire, which made for a blistering qualifying lap. But after that one lap, you know, I mean, those things are not designed to go full stint. And what we ended up seeing was several guys started on the primaries, banking on an early yellow that we often see at St. Pete. They got that early yellow on lap one, you know, so lap one time around, coming back through. That's 2 laps on the alternates, and you're done with them for the day. We did see one guy try to stretch them towards the end of the race. That was Lundgaard. That did not work out in his favor. So yeah, I think Firestone maybe needs to go back to the drawing board and get a more durable alternate tire, because otherwise it's just a gimmick if you're going to put it on for a lap and a half and then pull it off.
Yeah.
Hey, IndyCar got what they asked for. I mean,
they did. Yeah, you can't say you
can't blame Firestone. I don't
so.
think. You know, they hey, you won that, you got it, and
that's exactly what the Firestone rep that was on IMS radio said. This is what IndyCar asked for. So
be careful what you wish for.
Yep. So you have a lot of those guys. You know, they just did the whole race on the blacks. So a couple of different strategies in there. Some guys tried to use the greens, the alternates on a middle stint. So there were definitely at least two strategies afoot in there. And I think Lundgaard's the only guy that went for the alternates on his last stint. So, but at the end of the day, it was that was the way to go. McLaughlin started on the blacks, dominated the early portion of the race because he didn't have to make that stop on lap 2 like everybody else did but eventually McLaughlin needed to do a stint on the alternates, and he never recovered from that. I think he finished 4th, which is not a horrible day, but but you got to give some credit to Palou for just again another flawless day. Dixon started back a little farther, worked the strategy to perfection. Realistically, 30 laps to go. I said Dixon's got this one. I didn't count on the undercut by Palou. So, Richard, what were some of your thoughts on the opening round of IndyCar this year, or the Fox coverage?
I thought it was a good event. I mean, hopefully, we've spoken about this, I think, every year on this show. Hopefully this is an opportunity for IndyCar to sort of get all their ducks in a row with the TV coverage and really make a concerted effort and have a little bit of consistency with the platform. I think that'll help them massively. I think in the past they've jumped around too much between Peacock and streaming and NBC, and whereas
CNBC
now Fox, now Fox, bang, done, all season, same presenter, same time, same channel. That sort of consistency, I think, is massively underrated because then people don't have to go looking for it. It's there; they know where it's going to be.
Compared to NASCAR this year is going to be a train wreck because they got Fox, NBC, TNN,
Amazon Prime, CW, whatever it is.
Races on Amazon, CW for the Xfinity.
It's a little bit of a mess there, but that's been NASCAR's model for a long time now. They split the season and they never seem to be too concerned about it. From a racing standpoint, I think Palou did what Palou's done for the last 4 or 5 years. Really, we're sort of we coin him and we phrase him as the heir apparent to Scott Dixon in the way that it goes about his business, and just getting race wins and getting solid points results. And I think it was, from what I heard, Scott Dixon actually had a radio failure and didn't have any communication with his pit box for the majority of the race. So he actually pitted a lap too late because he didn't get the communication from the team, and that probably cost him the win, because as you say, Palou ended up with the quite an aggressive undercut and managed to get the business done there. So a little bit unlucky for Dixon, but it's all these little things, all these little things go into winning a race.
Well, that's exactly what happened. Because they told him to, since the radio was malfunctioning, to just come in when the fuel light came on.
Yeah.
Which ideally, if he'd have pitted a lap earlier, he probably would have won that race. But then Ganassi kind of backtracked on the whole radio issue after the fact, obviously because running the whole race without radio contact is against the rules, and they didn't want to risk a disqualification or anything. Because we know now, after last year's St. Pete, that IndyCar, they don't mind to go ahead and penalize you and take points away weeks after the fact. So they kind of backtracked on a little bit. And it wasn't totally non-functional. So I don't know if any more is going to come out of that or not, but
we could hear him, but he couldn't hear us. That'll probably be the excuse.
Something like that, yeah. So I don't know. So, but I enjoyed it. It's good to have IndyCar back. They've got the season that ends first, so it's the longest gap in between. I thought the Fox cover was pretty good. I enjoyed Will Buxton.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, he's good.
So,
because they're off the thermal next, aren't they?
Thermal's in 2 weeks. Yep. So, and then of course of our new guys, Prema came in there quite respectable.
Yeah.
They didn't set the world on fire, but they didn't look like they were totally lost.
No.
They came in there, looked professional. I think they qualified, 15th and 18th, something like that, out of 27 cars, which is not terrible for the first time out. So, and again, that's a very professional organization that's been around for a while. So we'll have to, kind of watch their progress. I think their guys did well. We did have a couple guys, out on the first lap, very disappointed, kind of a bad way to start the season. Will Power out on lap 1, Nolan Siegel out on lap 1, and as short as the IndyCar season is, if you want to be in contention for the championship, you really can't afford more than one straight up DNF that early in the race. So those guys have lost their mulligan. And Palou Ward too, having a tough day. He's another championship contender. He ran into some troubles as well. So, and McLaren, for their part, I mean, I kind of felt like they, come in setting the world on fire this year, and they really, it's same old Ganassi and Penske up front.
Yeah,
and Andretti, great qualifying, horrible pit stops. They've got to do something with that. I mean, I can't tell you how many times a fouled pit strategy or lousy pit stop has screwed Colton Herta out of a win. But Herta looked pretty darn good in practice qualifying and through the race. He was looking for a good finish until his pit crew kind of wrecked it for him. So.
Yeah, you can make the cars fast, but if your pit crew is slow, then it's just like pulling up at a stoplight.
Yeah. The interesting thing is the IndyCar, they don't have like NASCAR. They have guys that are specifically hired just to do the pit stops.
Yeah,
that's all they do. They have pit stop specialists. IndyCar doesn't have that. Your guy that's changing the left front tire, maybe an engineer that works on in the garage the rest of the week, right? So, but Meyer Shank is going to, or they have the intent to go ahead and introduce that into IndyCar and have just straight up pit stop specialist guys on there. See if that helps their fortune. So we'll have to.
I imagine that IndyCar will put a stop to that pretty quickly, just due to the expense. I think one of the main things that you look at it from a NASCAR side is the physicality of a NASCAR pit stop is way more intense than what you see in Formula One and IndyCar. That's not to say that the IndyCar and the Formula One guys don't practice, intently because they certainly do. But the physicality of a NASCAR pit stop and the weight of everything they're carrying around. I mean, to carry one of those tires or two of the tires, as some of those guys do, and to carry the fuel can. It's that's why these that Australian actor, what's his name? Come on, Frank. Every year you post this on Facebook.
Oh, Hugh Jackman.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hugh Jackman versus Hugh Jackman.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, you need a huge Jackman.
So these guys, and they're not cheap. I mean, back in the day, the NASCAR guys used to get paid per pit stop. And I was talking to one of the guys, and he was, he was on the pit crews when you'd get guys that got knocked out of a race would go around and scrub tires for his teammates. And, they were loving it because they'd do 20 pit stops a race and they were getting like $1,000 a pit stop. It's not a bad gig if you can get it once a week.
No.
So, but I think I think IndyCar will turn around and say, yeah, no, that's an unnecessary expense because it's an expensive sport as it is, and we know that the budgets for these teams are always sort of on a tightrope, and to throw another, and goodness me, you're probably looking at probably $1 million a year to get a pit crew, dedicated pit crew at least. I think NASCAR will poo-poo that one pretty quickly.
Probably, yeah. Formula One, do they have dedicated pit stop guys? Probably.
No, they don't. No, they're all mechanics normally. I mean, they will.
Well, they have 13, 14 guys go over the wall.
Yeah, there's about between 14 and 16. I mean, there's 3 per corner, 2 guys to balance the car front and I mean there's probably 12 to 14 guys per pit stop, but the majority of them will be mechanics that work on the car throughout the week. And also there's not a pit crew dedicated per car. The guys will pit both cars, so it's not you know. Now the facilities they have for practicing and training are immense. I mean, Williams, when I was there, we were probably one of the quickest teams out there from the pit stop side, and we had multi-million-dollar practice facilities for the guys. We actually had a mechanical car that would move along a rail, and so the pit crews could actually practice, you know, without the need for a physical car moving. So this thing would slide, you know, a hub assembly with suspension and a wheel would slide along a rail, and that they could then, it would stop, you know, where they were meant to be, and they could practice. And you could also tune into it, you know, the driver stops 6 inches past his mark, or he's 3 inches too close to you, or his wheel's at an angle, and all this sort of stuff. They could, you know, do all of this sort of work, and it was all simulated, and they could do hundreds of pit stop reps in a week. Now, I don't know what it's like in IndyCar, but in NASCAR world, each team will actually have a dedicated pit car, and there will be a pit car driver, and they'll just keep driving backwards and forwards, and they'll just do, you know, reps that way. So it's a different world in a way.
Yeah, I want to say Williams is still right up there among the best at pit stops.
They're not bad, but it's, you know, again, it's money. You know, obviously people saw Williams doing, you know, being effective on the pit stop side, and they thought, well, you know, what can we do to be there? And the Red Bull, I think, Red Bull and McLaren are pretty dominant. And again, it's just money they're throwing at that sort of program. You know, they realize that, you know, if you turn around to a driver and say, right, you got 2 pit stops in the race, you know, we need to find you to find 4 seconds because we're not very good at pit stops, then, you know, it's far easier to spend, you know, the $2 million on pit crew training facilities than it is to find 2 seconds, you know, or 4 seconds over the course of a race, as silly as it sounds.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Formula One pit stops they're incredible.
Yeah.
They do it so fast, you don't even realize they've done it. You know, every now and again when I like go to the tire place, you know, I just want to show them that video. So why do I have to sit here half the day? Watch this.
Yeah, you see, those guys get paid by the hour, not by the car. So that's the difference.
Yeah. So,
and they don't get bonuses for like under 3 second pit stops.
No.
No.
Yeah. Those you can't even see the tires come off and on that. It's so hard to see the tire just come off and go on.
They're so fast. Yeah.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
And there's so many guys there too. You can barely see what they're doing, but they're
so there was one team, I can't remember which team it was now, but again, this is 10-15 years ago. They actually got a consultant brain surgeon in to work with them on the pit stop timing and teamwork, because obviously, you know, in an operating theater, when, you know, on some of these brain surgeries and some of these trauma surgeons, you know, the way those teams work on a patient is a very, very similar role, in that people know their job and they're doing it automatically and without almost being told what to do. And I can't remember which team it was now, but they got a brain surgeon in. Maybe it was to see if they could find the driver's brain more than the pit crew. But yeah, it was. They take every small advantage that they can try and get hold of, and yeah, it's pretty impressive what they do.
Yeah, that's why so much money flies around in Formula One. So
yeah.
All right, well let's go to COTA. Talk about the NASCAR race there, and we had touched on it last week. They're running the shorter course that they call the national course, and Richard, you and I were both a little skeptical about that, but I feel like that track actually raced really well for the Cup cars.
Yep.
They put on a pretty good show. At the end of the day, it was my guy Christopher Bell taking 2 in a row. I mean, this guy, he's gonna be my pick for champion again this year. Hope he can do it. But heck of a way to get the season off to a start. You know, 3 races in, 2 wins in the books. But this is probably the cleanest NASCAR road course race I've seen ever.
Yep.
You know, so yeah,
unless you Chase Elliott.
Yeah. We had a little melee at the start there when we tried to go 5 wide into turn 1, and Chase Elliott caught the wrong end of Ross Chastain, and then Austin Cindric got into it with
Ty Dillon.
Ty Dillon, yeah.
Actually, Cindric's been penalised for that. He received a penalty in the NASCAR bulletin the other day.
Yes.
So I was surprised at that a little bit, actually, because he was clumsy and it was a little. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised that they. Now there may be some radio transmission kicking around that probably, a lot of the time these drivers incriminate themselves, as we saw with Austin Dillon at Richmond last year. So there may be a little bit of that kicking around, which probably didn't help his cause.
Well, I think he dodged a bullet with the penalty because they were talking about a 1-race suspension for him.
Yeah, I don't think it was that bad. I mean, wasn't it? Bubba got suspended for dumping Chase a few years ago, and something similar to that. So, yeah, I don't think it was quite that bad, but yeah. And then Denny got into Dillon at one point. I think Denny got on some gravel and locked up and used Austin as a external braking mechanism.
Yeah,
external braking mechanism.
Yeah, but I thought the race was really clean. They had a nice organic finish at the end. No green white checkers, but still 3 cars in frame at the end of the race. All with a legitimate shot of winning. I was surprised, honestly. People cheering for Kyle Busch. It's interesting how he's come now. Yeah, he's been 60 races since he's won. But this was a guy who was the heel forever. But now that and we've seen it with a lot of drivers over the years as they kind of age. Like Jeff Gordon was universally hated when he was winning all the time, right? As he got a little older, he became, people went nuts if he won. And I think you've seen that.
Somebody described him. It's a little bit like the Aaron Rodgers, scenario with him going to a lesser team and not winning, but people pointed out that people still don't like Rodgers, so it's not really a fair comparison.
Yeah, but I was surprised here all people, But of course, you got guys like Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain stepping up to be the villain. Denny Hamlin can't keep his mouth shut between races, and I want to say all the talk about Cindric should have been suspended came from Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick, who's become a loudmouth podcaster this day and age. So. But
they're entertaining. But we sometimes I know Toyota we listen to Denny's from behind the sofa. It's like, oh boy, what's he going to say now? But no, got it. But one of the things that I do, I've always, NASCAR's always been the case, but I always envisage especially at COTA, the meme of. Oh god, the meme that we see on social media with Leonardo DiCaprio from the that Hollywood movie, where he's pointing at the screen.
Yeah, got the martini glass. Yeah.
I always envisioned that being one of the FIA stewards from the Formula One paddock. Every time you see the Cup cars going around turn 19 and 20, sort of like 6 lanes out of the track limits.
They're in a whole nother zip code at that point.
Yeah, it's like, look at him. Yeah.
He's making a long distance phone call to get back on the track.
Yeah.
I mean, track limits don't exist in NASCAR.
Well, they do. Though. See, that was the interesting thing because there was supposedly a little bit of confusion because they were being quite tight on the track limits at turn 5, which is the start of the S's.
Right.
And then you had turn 6 and 6A and 6B, I think they named it, which was the shortcut basically.
Right.
And then like halfway through, like the crew chiefs came on the radio to the drivers and said, oh, by the way, NASCAR have said they're not policing track limits at turn 6, which some drivers appeared to understand and been realized that was the case, and others didn't. So some drivers were like, oh, well, great, now they tell us, and others were like, yeah, okay. Because I know Chris Bell was very aggressive on the turn 6 apex, and other guys like Kyle Busch were on the radio saying, "Hey, this guy needs a penalty because he's cut the corner." And I guess at that point, the crew chiefs questioned it with NASCAR, and NASCAR said, "Yeah, no, we're not policing it there." Now, whether that was different to the pre-race memo that NASCAR pre every event will give out sort of a docket, if you like, of do's and don'ts and pit road speeds and restart procedures and all this sort of stuff. And typically for road courses, their mandated track limits will be in that document. So whether there was some confusion with that document, or I think it's probably more likely there was some confusion over what was turn 6 because of the way they renumbered them for the shortcut. So that was interesting. Radio comms there for some of the guys.
6B, and then Lee. You've been quiet over there.
Yeah, I'm doing math. I have Brittany Force math I need to do, and it takes both brain cells to calculate. I have my shoes off, and I'm trying to use my toes to count, but yeah, no, I mean the track limits were funny because I watched the highlights, and like they come to the start finish and they get off the track limits, and like Christopher Bell's in first place, and then Kyle's in second, and they come out of the corner, and I'm just exaggerating, of course, but Kyle Busch is in the lead, so it's a whole nother race down there in the corner. But yeah, I thought Kyle had a pretty strong car for most of the day, and then just that last corner, Chris Bell just came in and got it done. So, but 2 in a row, can't complain. He's in it.
All right,
it's really impressive.
Here's something I noticed at COTA. I don't know if you guys noticed this or not. If you look at the lap times and the lap charts, the Xfinity cars were faster than the Cup cars at COTA.
Mm-hmm.
Did you happen to notice that? And
I can believe it.
I'll say this: the COTA's a type of track that is very prone to speed differences due to atmospheric conditions. And the Xfinity race was run later in the day, the prior day, than the Cup race, which they were running in cooler conditions. Which, but it kind of shows you that how close those cars really are. The Cup cars are suddenly, the days of the 1,000 horsepower Cup car are over, and the Xfinity and Cup cars are much more closely matched.
Well, I'll give what I think could be potentially a reason for that. And I'd have to check. Hang on, bear with me 1 second. 137. Sorry. Talk amongst yourself for a few minutes.
Do you need to take your shoes off to do the math, Richard?
Hell no.
Because you're an engineer. You got your calculator.
Exactly.
Okay. While you're counting your toes, I'll just mention that the winner of the Xfinity race was Connor Zilisch. Zilisch, is that how you say it?
Zilisch, yeah.
Yeah.
Zilisch or Zilch. So his second career Xfinity win, so good for him. That dude, man, he's really polished when it comes to talking to the media. I was really surprised how polished he is for outside of the car for a young guy, but I think that's a kid with a bright future right there. Yeah. All right, so Richard, what did you figure out?
Yeah, no, my thought was, and in qualifying they were pretty closely matched. My thinking that why you may see a large differential in races
wasn't a large differential, but it was.
No, but during the races, you've obviously got the Cup cars couldn't do a stage on a full set of full tank of fuel, so they were probably fuel saving. Whereas on the Xfinity cars, I think they could go a full stage without having to save fuel. So there may have been a difference there. But in qualifying they were, a quarter of a second, half a second faster, which was interesting. I mean, probably a lot of it is to do actually with how the Xfinity cars, because they're not quite such a large engine, they tend to be a little bit easier to drive at lower speeds. So corner exit and the like, they're not as aggressive. The Cup car, you just tap that throttle and you're redlining it instantly. Whereas on the Xfinity cars, you've got a little bit more room to play with. So they can be a little bit more aggressive with throttle pickup, which may help them there on a road course. I don't know.
Could the other difference be that maybe the Xfinity cars or the frames and tires are a little softer? I mean, I know the Cup cars are pretty rigid frame cars, and the way they're, I don't know the exact differences, but I know the Xfinity cars could possibly be a little softer in the frame to handle those rights and lefts versus the rigid frame of
you see,
Cup car.
Interestingly, in theory, you'd think the Cup car would be more suited because the modern Cup car anyway is supposedly an equal setup car, if you like. The left, right side distribution is the same, whereas the Xfinity cars are still the older style body with designed to natively turn left. Not as bad as we saw in the early 2000s, but they're the older style body. So in theory, you'd think that a car that's set up with independent suspension and the like would be more compliant when it comes to a road course, and they have been designed more like if you were to take a Cup car and an Xfinity car and compare it to something like a touring car or an Audi V8 car, for example,
or
the Cup car is a lot more. Yeah, to a certain extent, yeah. They're a lot more comparable to one of those. So yeah, it was a little surprising to see, to see what Frank pointed out there, but maybe the Xfinity guys are just better. I don't know.
Yeah, could be.
I'll tell you what is. I heard a comment today, and this came from a couple guys that are well deep in the racing, been watching for years and writing articles about it and such, and kind of their assessment was that the Xfinity races are actually the better show. Cup just happens to race on a Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, the only comment I would make
go right ahead.
The only comment I'd make against that is on the Cup side, you've got realistically three teams. You've got RCR, you've got Gibbs, and you've got Junior Motorsport. Outside of that, you'd be unlikely to find a winner outside of that group. I think maybe Haas Factory Team or whatever they're called these days, if they're still even doing it. I don't know. And now in the Cup Series, you've got 6 or 7 teams. Maybe 20 drivers that can win a race.
Sure,
so on the Xfinity side, I think there's probably realistically, on any given Saturday, in this case, 10 drivers that would, you could say could win races. So that would be my only caveat against that statement. I think there's a little bit more of a unknown quantity in Cup racing.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't say I agreed with it. I just wanted to point it out because I thought it was something interesting I heard on a podcast earlier today. So, what else going on in NASCAR? Kyle Larson is going to run some truck races this year, he announced. As if he doesn't stay busy enough.
Well,
between the dirt tracks and the sprints and the midgets and the Indy 500. Hey, let me do a couple of truck races. Yeah, so that kid just loves to drive, man. I'll tell you.
Well, when somebody puts a big enough carrot in front of you, they're going to do it. I think there's a lot of, especially on the truck side. It's always a fine line for that series. You want it to be a standalone series. You want it to be a proving ground for the young drivers who are coming through the program, and you want that to be your driver development series. But if you want to get bums on seats, as it were, to coin a phrase, you need the bigger name drivers in there. You will get more people watching a truck race when you have Kyle Busch or Kyle Larson or any William Byron and any of these guys turning up and running a truck race than you would if you didn't have them. And the same for Xfinity as well. When you get some of the Cup guys dropping down to Xfinity, I mean, what do you think the viewing figures are for Xfinity when Dale Jr. Does his one-off race a year? It's pretty.
Yeah.
It'll certainly boost them. So it's a chicken and egg situation for them, really.
Sales of Hellman's mayonnaise go up on those weekends too.
They do. And just in my house,
Well, Hellman's does make a damn good mayonnaise.
It's nothing compared to Duke's, though. Duke's is the king.
I knew somebody was going to say that.
Duke's is the king.
Just to sort of go off topic a little bit, but stay on the mayonnaise topic, not racing. A few years ago, I went to the Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl down in the Bank of America Stadium at Charlotte. It was a college game between UNC and West Virginia, I think it was. And as you know, at the end of a quarter or whatever, they had some well lubricated college students down on the side of the field playing these games. And one of the games was how much mayonnaise you could eat in 30 seconds.
Oh my God. What?
And the prize was a year's supply of mayonnaise. No. No. Not a good look. Sorry, Dukes. You need to do something better on your marketing than that, because that was pretty bad.
I don't know if you saw. I don't know if you saw the Pop-Tart Bowl.
I'd be fine with that.
I think those guys have really hit the hammer on the nail with their marketing. The Pop-Tart Bowl was so much fun to watch. Where the dancing Pop-Tart goes in the toaster. The giant Pop-Tart comes out that everybody eats. I'm like, wow, it's like televised murder right there. But we are off topic, so
isn't Catherine Legg going to run a couple Xfinity races this year? Didn't she announce that?
I think
she's doing a cup race in Phoenix this weekend.
Catherine Legg is going to run the cup race in Phoenix this week.
Yep.
Yeah, so see how she does there. Her backers, that Elf Cosmetic Company, they are really big into.
It's not Will Ferrell, is it? Sorry.
No, I think Elf stands for eyes, lips, face. I mean, seriously,
yeah,
that's what I believe that it stands for, eyes, lips, face, because it's cosmetics. But anyway, they are really big on women in sports.
Sure.
So they've been very supportive of her. They actually sponsor a podcast that features some fine female athletes, across the broad spectrum of different sports. Your basketball and track and field and auto racing, and Catherine Legg's a great ambassador for them. So she might as well take every opportunity she can get, as long as she's got the backing of that fine sponsor right there. So I don't know if jumping into a cup race sight unseen is the best thing to do. She could maybe call Elio and say, "Hey, how things are going in Daytona?"
I mean, it's jumping into the deep end of the pool. So
but good for her. I like Catherine Legg. She's a great personality. She's a great ambassador for the sport and for women in sports and female athletes. So I hope she has a good weekend.
Yeah, who's she? Okay, Live Fast. Okay.
So, Lee, who do you like for Phoenix before we start talking about the next chapter of the NASCAR 23XI lawsuit?
I knew that was coming.
If we can get away with it. Christopher Bell goes 3 in a row. Is that what you're going to say?
I'm going to let you take Christopher Bell because he's your guy this year. So I don't want to go trampling on your kid.
All right.
I don't know. Let's circle back around to my pick. I need a second to think on.
All right. Richard, you like
anybody in
a Toyota. So
yeah.
Speaking of Toyota drivers,
Bubba
Wallace won his first stage win at a road course at COTA. Yep. So congratulations to him. That's a check it off the list right there.
Yeah, it was. It was a little. They obviously both, Tyler and Bubba, qualified on the front row with the 2311 cars, and I just don't think they had the race pace, and I think they realized that, and they wanted to try and maximize what they had available to them, and come out of there with something, because on race pace they just didn't have what they needed, unfortunately.
Yeah, but banking some stage win points is not a bad thing.
Nope.
If you can go ahead and grab them. So, but I just thought I'd point that out since we're talking about Toyota drivers. Oh, Lee, have you come up with a pick now?
I have. Keselowski. Bad Brad this weekend.
Bad Brad. Speaking of Keselowski, man, he had to be carted off in an ambulance because his cool suit failed. And it gets hot in Texas. So, where he just was overheated, suffering the effects of heat exhaustion, had to be taken away in an ambulance. So, and we've seen these kind of things before. Most notably, I always remember Nigel Mansell in Dallas, Texas, trying to push his car over the line wearing a black fire suit when it's 115 degrees out, and he just collapsed like a rag doll. I remember who was the guy that had to pull out of the car and give fluids to?
The one that Jerry Punch saved.
Nah, more recently, and then Bubba Wallace came by and splashed water in his face because he was mad at him.
Oh, I don't know who that was.
Who was that?
Bowman, I think, wasn't it?
Could have been. Yeah, I remember Nelson Piquet at one point got effects of heat exhaustion in a race, and they had to pull him out of the car. So
I mean, it got bad in Formula One back in sort of 2015, 2016, when drivers' weight was included in the overall weight of the car. Obviously, so they were then pushing the drivers to get lighter and lighter. It was not uncommon for drivers to pass out post race. So that's why they removed the driver's weight. They have a set driver weight. So the drivers in NASCAR, they do the same thing. The drivers get weighed, I think, twice a year.
Yeah,
it's a bit like a boxer. They'll starve themselves for a few days to get under the weight, and then they've got some room to work with there. But it's interesting you mentioned that.
I'll always remember Michael Schumacher talking about the race ways. The way, and he said the key to this is take the biggest shit you can right before you go.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. But interesting, talking about COTA, when Tyler Reddick won at COTA 2 years ago, I think it was 2024 or 2023, sorry. He had his cool suit failed mid-race. And testament to him, he managed to still win the race. It was we've got as all the teams do and all the manufacturers do, they have their physios and sports scientists and people like that. And most of the drivers, actually, it's a weird thing, they will pre-race, they will swallow a biometric capsule, and then they'll scan it at the end of the race, and it monitors their biometrics throughout the race. And then that's when you post race, you take the biggest shit possible to get rid of it. Tyler's numbers for that race when he failed, apparently they were saying that most people would have suffered from a severe heat stroke, given the conditions he was racing under. But testament to the fitness levels now that you see with these drivers, for them to cope with that.
Yeah, but still dangerous nonetheless.
Oh yeah,
still dangerous and not quite healthy. But adrenaline levels can do a lot for you too to keep you going. So, all right.
Yeah.
So,
well, at least the crew wasn't eating ice cream at the pit box this year with, Days of Thunder style. What do you do? We're eating ice cream.
We're eating ice cream. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
One of these days we're just gonna have to do a show all about racing movies. And I know we did one back in the COVID years when we were having to make up topics on the fly because the e-racing was the only thing happening. But so anyway, I want to make sure we leave enough time to talk about NHRA because we've got a couple of videos to put up. But really quick, so NASCAR has filed a countersuit to 23XI's lawsuit. And I mean, I didn't read all of the verbiage of NASCAR's lawsuit. I read some of it, but, you know, mind you, legalese is not my wheelhouse. But if you ask me, this is a stalling tactic by NASCAR to kind of put off the hearing and just kind of drag this thing out. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are, but you would think they would work quickly to make this go away rather than drag it out. But what do I know?
Yeah, I think you're right there. In all fairness, I think that's exactly what it is. You know, I think it's you know, you start a fire somewhere to distract people and make them go put it out. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not great. I think you know, as I say, it smacks of desperation a little bit. But hey, who knows? Maybe wrong on that. Maybe something to it. I'm not a legal expert, and I think they try and put as many big words in there as possible to confuse us mere mortals.
I think the other tactic is, I mean, like I said before, I don't think this is going to trial. I mean, you don't do things like this to go to trial. You do things to get rules changed. And I think with the countersuit, it might be a way for NASCAR to kind of take away some of the things that are being asked of them. You know, kind of, well, hey, we'll give you this, but what about our countersuit? You've got to give us something back. So maybe it might be kind of trying to like lessen the blow, so to say.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they just need to take the whole thing to arbitration.
Yep,
you know,
absolutely.
Keep it out of the public eye. Figure it out, hash it out, settle it, and get onto the business of racing cars. But that's just me. Yeah. Why? Because I like to watch them race the cars. So, all right. So, Lee, NHRA.
Yep.
Now, I'll let you, I'll just turn it over to you, let you introduce these couple of videos we have, which I think it's, well, you go ahead.
Yep. So, Gator Nationals begin this weekend. Winter Nationals, Gator Nationals, whichever one you want to call it, they're the same, down in Gainsville, Florida. And so the teams have been in Gainesville doing testing. You know, they make mods to the cars in the off season, and they really don't have a lot of testing time. So when they get to Gainesville, they run through a lot of testing. And during one of the test sessions, producer Mr. Keith Hayes has got a video. We'll watch the video, and then we'll come back and I'll talk about what happened. So.
Brittany blows one up, but goes 364.4 at 334 miles an hour. It popped at the stripe. 290. Look at the mile an hour. That's the fastest speed in history. 302.69 miles an hour to the eighth. That is the fastest eighth mile speed by a bunch ever. That is ridiculous. And if that thing had lived all the way to the stripe, it was probably going to go even quicker than that. And speed-wise, that car was probably going to run close to 340 miles an hour.
All right, so that was Brittany Force with her dad's team, John Force Racing, and Brittany set the unofficial speed record for the 8th mile. The numbers that you saw on the board at the end of her run were not the 8th mile times; those were the quarter mile times. You have to watch to the end of the video, and you saw a little graphic come up that showed the breakdown of her times. So an 8th mile is 660 feet. The quarter mile is 1320. So in 660 feet, it took her just a touch over, just a shy under 3 seconds to go 660 feet. So that's 2 football fields plus some in just under 3 seconds. Her speed at the quarter mile or at the 8th mile was 302 miles an hour, which is ridiculously fast. The numbers that you saw at the end there, those were like I said, her quarter mile times. There was a 32 mile an hour difference between those two. So going that twice the distance and 32 miles an hour is fast as well. And in time wise, it took her under 3/4 of a second to go from 660 feet to 1320. It's ungodly fast.
That's insane. Yeah.
It's just, I mean, and it's hard to visualize that. Like if you're listening and you didn't get to see the video but to watch it, I mean, it's just crazy. She didn't get it. It was unofficial. So she didn't get any, like the NHRA did not officially sanction her times because it was during a test. But I mean, when numbers like that come popping up, everybody takes notice. The other team, I mean, you just can't. You have to take notice of what she's doing. And the last time we saw numbers like this was a couple years ago, where the teams actually were racing to a 1/4 mile. And the times were so fast, and NHRA felt that the speeds exceeded the limits of the tracks and the cars. So they pulled back. Instead of going a 1/4 mile, they're only doing 1,000 feet. And that was NHRA's way of kind of restricting their speeds and their times, because they were, I mean, at one point they were putting up really fast numbers like this, and NHRA said, nope, too fast. You can't do that. So we're going to, instead of taking stuff off the engines and the cars and the transmissions, we're just going to pull the distance back. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if NHRA is going to start sanctioning, lengths of tracks again, but yeah, it's just a testament to these teams and how fast they go. So good on her. And then the other news this week, 8-time champ Tony Schumacher. He used to drive the Army car back in the day. End of last season, he didn't have his sponsorship, didn't pick up, so he was kind of looking for a ride this year. Last year, Clay Millican also lost his ride, lost his sponsorship. So Rick Ware Racing has picked up both those drivers, and they're going to split the season in half. So Tony Schumacher and Clay Millican will be sharing some seat time this year.
Rick Ware, wow.
Yeah.
All right.
If there's a pie that needs fingering, he's going to finger it.
He's in everything. I read headlines and it's Rick Ware Racing here and it's over there. Yeah, he's all over the joint. But
all right, wasn't there another video to share, or was it just one?
Yep. No, I think Keith's got one more to go.
All right, Keith, go ahead and cue it up, and Lee, take it away.
Thank you.
Palmer's car is trailing smoke, 367.8 at 205.
Oh,
Palmer's got a problem. The throttle is hung open. Scott Palmer is going off the end of this racetrack at a very, very high rate of speed as he enters the field down there, and that car is going to dig in and roll over hard. A multiple rollover crash for Scott Palmer, the machine coming to a rest on its side.
Yeah.
The smoke trailing off the car, the throttle definitely hung open. Brutal.
Terrible to see. Yeah, the car was trailing smoke the entire way. Not sure what was going on there. Then you saw as soon as through the chutes, throttle hung wide open, still here in the car.
There he is, folks. He's climbing out of the car.
Yep.
Scott Palmer's climbing out of the door of that race car. There is nothing left of that thing, and Scott Palmer is out of it, meaning physically out of the car.
Great to see. You just hate to see that for Scott Palmer. We just talked about this is probably the most beloved guy in the pits.
Yes.
A real racer's racer.
This is every racer's nightmare.
Yeah, the car left. It kind of dead hooked and bounced at the start, but we could see the smoke trailing from our vantage point back here. I don't know exactly what was going on there. At this point, we knew this was not good.
It is. Yeah, I mean, the fact that he got any sort of parachute out of this thing, and it went off the end of this racetrack as fast as anything. And as soon as I saw the rear end up that high, I thought, okay, it's going to go end over end. But no, it turned the side, and it rolled. I mean, it must have rolled half a dozen times or more.
And it was almost like there was no speed scrubbed off. Very little there. One parachute out. I think I saw the second one come out very late there.
All right, so that was Scott Palmer at the Pro Mod Nationals, and very, very bad situation. The throttle got hung up on his car, and the chutes deployed, one of them fully caught, the other one didn't. In a situation like that, when that throttle's hung open, the chutes really they're not going to do much of anything. And you saw Scott go off into the gravel pit there at the end in the car, do a couple somersaults. But he did walk away. From what I have followed on social media, he's doing well. He's bumped and bruised, which is completely normal for that type of thing. But that the gravel pit is, they're at all the racetracks. Back in the day before the show, we were talking about Englishtown in New Jersey. That racetrack actually got shut down because their gravel trap didn't meet standards. I think the length of it has to be 1,000 feet, and theirs was only like a couple hundred. And at Englishtown, there was some tragedies there because the overrun or the gravel pit was just too short. But it was good to see Scott walk away from that. And it's a good thing that we have those gravel pits because, it really could have been a bad situation if that wasn't there. But good to see him, back up and running. I'm sure he'll jump into the rest of the season when he's feeling up to it.
All right, thank you, Lee. So when do we start the NHR season proper?
So, it starts tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, and that'll be on Fox Sports 1?
FS1. So we have two. We're going back to the 4 qualifyings instead of 3. It used to be a single qualifying on Friday night and then 2 on Saturday. But we're going to an afternoon qualifying on Friday, plus an evening qualifying on Friday, and then the 2 on Saturday, with the finals being on Friday or Sunday. Excuse me.
All right, Richard, and are we going Formula 1 racing this weekend, or we got one more week off?
I think it's the next weekend, following weekend. Yeah.
All right.
We're there. Just hold up.
Okay. Yeah. Hold up. Everybody's dying to see Lewis Hamilton in red.
Yeah.
Because he's quite the fashionista. Anyway, we are just about out of time, but I do want to bring to your attention. Mark your calendar, April 9th. We'll have a special guest on the show, Jesse Iwuji. He's been on our show several years ago. Race car driver, also active member of the military, Navy man. He'll be here to talk about his iRacing venture that he has in conjunction with Emmett Smith?
Yep.
Right. Yep. So interested. So that's in a couple of weeks or. Just about a month, really. So, mark your calendar for that. I want to thank our sponsors, the Warner Brothers Formula One film coming up, Fox IndyCar with their driver promos, and Luis Torres Multimedia. So, thank you guys. I want to thank you, Lee. I want to thank you, Richard. I want to thank our 5 producer, Keith Hayes, and Sinister One Productions. I want to thank Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and you can now catch us on TikTok. Even though Lee and I are too old to be on TikTok.
I tried to sign up, but it said I was age restricted or something. I put my birth date. I don't know what happened there.
we'll have to get Louise to take care of our TikTok account for us. But yeah, we're on TikTok, so try to
press
bring
the
some
heart
button. Press the heart button, yeah.
Yeah.
But most of all, I want to thank you folks that tuned in and listened to us. Hope you enjoy the show tonight. Again, rest in peace, Mr. Gene Hackman. And to you folks that tuned in, have a good night. We'll talk to you in a week.
Hey guys, I just got to jump in here. I had a quick question that's been bugging the shit out of me for Lee on the pro mod. They don't have a fuel shut off for when that happens with the stuck open throttle, so they can just hit that fuel shut off and starve the engine of fuel.
Nope. They put just enough gas in those things, plus like another half a gallon to get down the racetrack. It's not like a full car engine, and they do that across all the divisions. But it's basically
they don't have like a kill switch.
No, nope. Not on the pro mods. They don't.
Wow.
Even if they had it, I don't think it would have done. It may have not done enough good. There was so much inertia going into that thing.
Gotcha.
It was, it probably would have taken 2 or 3 seconds to starve the engine out. And then by that point, he still would have been in the dirt.
He was still
cruising. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I had that question. It was bugging me. I wanted to kind of get that in case any of the viewers, had that same thought.
Great question.
So, yep.
No, real great question. All right. So now I'll really say goodnight. So until next week, good night.
Thanks for watching Drafting the Circuits. Make sure to follow Drafting the Circuits on Facebook, Spotify, Twitter, and YouTube. Drafting the Circuits is a Code Sinister One production.